The White House has just announced something absolutely massive that could put thousands of dollars directly into your bank account within weeks. And if you're watching this right now, you need to pay very close attention because this could be the financial lifeline you've been desperately waiting for. Right at this moment, across the entire country, a wave of emergency payments totaling $4,200 is being distributed to qualifying low-income families. And the shocking part is that millions of Americans have absolutely no idea this money is available to them. This isn't some distant future promise or political talking point that gets thrown around during election season. This is happening right now, today, as we speak, and the application windows are opening faster than most people can keep up with. The government has allocated billions of dollars for this emergency relief program, and they're actively pushing to get this money out the door before the funding runs dry, which means if you wait too long or don't take action immediately, you could miss out on what might be the largest direct payment opportunity of the entire year. Now, before you think this is just another government program with impossible requirements that disqualifies almost everyone who applies, let me tell you exactly what's going on and why this is different from anything we've seen before. The eligibility criteria are surprisingly broad, covering far more households than previous relief programs, and the income thresholds have been adjusted to reflect the actual cost of living crisis that everyday Americans are facing right now. We're talking about families making up to $60,000 a year potentially qualifying, which is significantly higher than most people would expect from a low-income assistance program. The payment structure is designed to get money into people's hands as quickly as possible, with most approved applicants receiving their funds through direct deposit within 10 to 15 business days of approval. And in some cases, people are reporting even faster turnaround times. This isn't going through the typical bureaucratic nightmare that makes you wait months for a decision. This is streamlined, this is urgent, and this is designed to provide immediate relief to families who are struggling to pay rent, buy groceries, cover utility bills, or keep up with the mountain of expenses that just keep piling up month after month. What makes this program even more incredible is that it's stacking on top of other benefits you might already be receiving. So if you're currently getting food assistance, housing vouchers, or any other form of government aid, this emergency payment won't disqualify you or reduce your existing benefits. Think about what $4,200 could do for your family right now. That's enough to catch up on several months of back rent if you've fallen behind. That's enough to fix that car that's been sitting in the driveway because you couldn't afford the repairs. That's enough to finally get caught up on those medical bills that have been sent to collections. Or maybe it's enough to just breathe for a minute and not have to choose between paying the electric bill or feeding your kids. The real tragedy here is that government estimates suggest less than 40% of eligible families are actually applying for these funds, which means billions of dollars are sitting unclaimed while families who desperately need this money are suffering unnecessarily simply because they don't know the program exists or they assume they won't qualify. The application process has been intentionally simplified compared to previous government assistance programs, and you don't need a lawyer or some expensive service to help you navigate it. You can complete the entire application online from your phone in about 20 minutes, and the documents they're asking for are things most people already have access to, like recent pay stubs, tax returns from last year, proof of residence, and basic identification. The government partnered with several community organizations and nonprofit groups to provide free application assistance if you need help gathering documents or filling out the forms. So there's literally no excuse not to at least try. Here's what almost nobody is talking about though. The funding for this program is temporary and it's being distributed on a first-come, first-served basis within each state's allocation. That means even if you qualify perfectly on paper, if your state runs out of its designated funding before your application gets processed, you're going to be placed on a waiting list, and there's no guarantee that additional funding will be approved to clear those waiting lists. Some states are already reporting that they've processed applications for more than 70% of their allocated funds in just the first few weeks, which means the window of opportunity is closing faster than anyone anticipated. Let me break down exactly who qualifies, because this is where people make mistakes and assume they're not eligible when they actually are. Single adults without children can qualify if their income falls below certain thresholds. Families with children have higher income limits and receive priority processing. Elderly individuals over 65 have an entirely separate track, with even more generous qualification standards. And people with disabilities are being fast-tracked through the approval process. The income limits vary by state because they're adjusted for local cost of living. So someone living in California or New York might qualify with a higher income than someone living in Mississippi or Arkansas. But that's actually working in favor of applicants because it means the program is recognizing that $40,000 a year in rural Oklahoma goes a lot further than $40,000 a year in San Francisco. Veterans are being given special consideration in the application process, and if you've served in the military at any point, you need to make sure you're indicating that on your application because it can move you up in the processing queue. Families who were impacted by recent natural disasters, job losses, or medical emergencies are also being prioritized, and there's a section in the application where you can explain any special circumstances that have affected your financial situation. The money itself is coming from a combination of federal emergency funds that were allocated but never fully distributed during previous crisis periods, along with newly appropriated budget allocations that Congress pushed through in recent months with surprisingly bipartisan support, which should tell you just how serious the economic situation has become when both sides of the political aisle are agreeing that immediate cash assistance is necessary. What's fascinating about this program is that it's operating somewhat under the radar of mainstream media coverage, not because it's secret or hidden, but because it's being rolled out so quickly through existing government infrastructure that the usual bureaucratic announcements and press conferences haven't kept pace with the actual distribution timeline. Social media is absolutely exploding right now with people sharing their approval notices and bank deposit screenshots, showing that real money is actually hitting real accounts. And these aren't fake posts or scams. These are legitimate recipients who took 30 minutes to fill out an application and are now holding thousands of dollars that they didn't have last week. The payment structure is particularly interesting because it's not being distributed as a loan that you'll have to pay back. This is a direct grant, which means once that money hits your account, it's yours to keep and spend however you need to spend it without any restrictions or requirements about how you use it. The government isn't going to follow up in 6 months asking for receipts or checking whether you spent it on approved expenses. They're trusting that families know best how to use emergency funds to stabilize their own situations. This is a massive departure from typical assistance programs that come with endless strings attached and monitoring requirements, and it's one of the reasons why this program is gaining so much traction so quickly among families who are tired of jumping through hoops just to get basic help. Now, I need to address the elephant in the room because I know some of you are thinking this sounds too good to be true and wondering if this is some kind of scam. And I completely understand that skepticism because we've all been bombarded with fake government grant schemes and phishing attempts that try to steal our personal information. The way to protect yourself is to only apply through official government websites that end in .gov. Never give your information to third-party sites that claim they can get you approved faster for a fee. And verify any communication you receive by calling official government phone numbers that you look up yourself rather than clicking links in emails or text messages. The timeline for this program is absolutely critical to understand because unlike traditional government benefits that are ongoing and available year-round, this is specifically designated as emergency relief with a defined end date. The current funding authorization runs through the end of this fiscal year, and while there's always a possibility of extension or renewal, you absolutely cannot count on that happening, especially with budget negotiations and political priorities constantly shifting in Washington. State administrators are being instructed to process applications as rapidly as possible and to distribute the full allocation of funds before the deadline, which is creating this unusual situation where the government is actually encouraging people to apply rather than putting up barriers to reduce the number of recipients. Payment amounts are standardized within household categories, so a family of 4 will receive the full $4,200 regardless of whether they're barely under the income limit or well below it, which eliminates the complicated sliding scale calculations that usually make these programs so confusing. Single individuals typically receive between $1,500 and $2,000 depending on their specific circumstances. Couples without children fall into a middle tier around $3,000, and families with dependent children qualify for the maximum payment amounts. What's causing a lot of confusion right now is that different states are at different stages of rolling out their portions of the program. So you might have friends or family members in other states who haven't heard anything about this yet, while your state has already processed thousands of applications. The distribution strategy was designed to start with states that have the infrastructure already in place to handle rapid application processing, which is why you're seeing states like Florida, Texas, and Pennsylvania already well into their distribution phase, while some smaller states are just now getting their systems online. This staggered rollout is actually working in favor of people who are paying attention right now, because if you're in an early launch state, you're getting your application in before the rush. And if you're in a state that's launching later, you have the advantage of learning from the experiences of applicants in other states and knowing exactly what documentation to have ready. The federal government has set up a centralized information portal where you can check your state's specific status, see what phase of distribution they're currently in, and access the direct application link for your state's program. And this is information that's being updated almost daily as more states come online and begin processing. One of the most powerful aspects of this program that isn't getting enough attention is how it's designed to help families break the cycle of financial emergency that keeps pulling them back down even when they start to make progress. When you're living paycheck to paycheck and something unexpected happens, a car breakdown, a medical bill, a temporary job loss, it doesn't just set you back by the amount of that emergency. It triggers a cascade of additional problems because now you're late on rent, which triggers late fees. You can't get to work reliably, which puts your job at risk. You're stressed, which affects your health. And suddenly you're drowning in a spiral that $4,000 could have completely prevented. This emergency payment is specifically sized to be large enough to actually solve problems rather than just putting a small band-aid on a massive wound. And early data from recipients is showing that families who receive this funding are using it strategically to address the root causes of their financial instability rather than just covering immediate bills.